Hey yo, how's it going? This is Christy. You're following my weight loss journey, learning how to do things like regulate my food intake and what kind of foods to eat, how to stick with schedules with my ADHD, and deal with all sorts of chronic health issues and back issues, blah, 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 blah. I'm not really going to chronicle too much of health issues unless they pop up. So I had this big bout of anemia last year and it kind of messed up with everything that I was doing. And then we moved and it was like I moved in with roommates and things stopped being as budgeted. So what I was trying to do was mimic old method that I had that was based on a monetary system of budgeting, but it only really worked when I lived by myself. So I was trying to come up with a way to budget in a more of a fluid environment that would work no matter how much money you had, no matter where you were, no matter who you were around. You could still kind of work within this framework that helps with disordered eating. And I came up with my little bracelet idea. Technically, you can count it down with anything, but I'm using a bracelet for this example. To count down 21 fullness points through the day. That represents 3 5 out of 10 meals and 2 3 out of 10 snacks, if that kind of makes sense. And as I use up my points during the day, because I can use them kind of however I want, I go through my bracelet. When it's over, it's over. I have been having a little bit of a slip up over the last couple days. Not yesterday, but the day before and the day before that. I had too many gummy snacks, just way too many. I had a period crash out kind of event type of thing. But because I quit drinking, because I quit smoking, I wasn't going to go back to doing those things, so I went and grabbed a bag of gummy strips and just literally the second day I ate the entire pack of gummy strips, I was just like, you know what? You're having a crash out day. Just have your crash out day. So every once in a while, that's still going to happen. I feel like it didn't really have much to do with the diet causing me to go crazy. It was more that I was just stressed out and focused on other things. And so I was just thinking really hard about stuff and I just wanted sugar. So you know what? I actually designed this so that that was going to be possible. And we also know that we have break days. I would prefer those to be just a super heavy meal, like going to a buffet with friends or something being at a wedding and eating the cake and the whole meal just because it's so good, every once in a while. But as opposed to, us, I don't know, we have what we call it's a refeed day. So once a week you have sort of a higher calorie meal, usually higher protein, higher fat, and higher carb, everything but sugar. Just to kind of trick your metabolism into thinking that there is not scarcity. Again, we're trying to, a lot of people who have eating disorders, including myself, came from backgrounds where food was scarce at different times in their lives. Where there just either wasn't food or there wasn't enough food. And so a lot of the disordered eating is based on kind of an anxiety surrounding the idea of running out of food, not actually running out of food, but the idea of it. And so when we're talking about the bracelet, it's more kind of retraining your brain to just only feed itself so many times a day, to look for other sources of dopamine during other times when you're feeling like you could use something to keep you going or something. And it's just a reasonable amount of times. So, I mean, if you're eating, 21 Twix bars and using your points up that way, you're probably still going to feel sick. This is just to help regulate the amount of food. After that, it's up to you to fill those macros appropriately. So, if you didn't have your toilet time that morning or something, you might want to focus on higher fiber that day. If you're feeling a little sluggish, you might want to give yourself some carbs or make sure you have some proteins. If you're feeling just a little depleted or something, maybe some healthy fats are lacking in your diet. But what it is it's meant to retrain your system of intuition and retrain your brain to stop seeking in these kind of panicky modes for food when it's an artificial construct. It's still just kind of living in its past little trauma where it's just food's going to run out and then we're going to starve and it's going to be the worst, you know what I mean? A lot of us struggled with that. I mean, I grew up the watered down powdered milk, you know what I mean? We were poor when we were first young. And so just different versions of that, and then grow, even in adulthood and stuff like that, just being too proud to go to the system or whatever for help. And that's fine for me. I felt like as an adult, I was allowed to do that kind of stuff, periods of times where I would only have beans to eat or something, you know what I mean? And just, that was the intention. I bought a 50-pound bag of beans so that I would have beans to eat, and things like that. And so, we're trying to get through all these like rewiring neurological patterns while not having to endure, hundreds of hours of therapy to unwind all these little weird food insecurities. And instead, just kind of structure something that our brains can kind of settle on, and a system that we can work with. And it's sort of more of a starting point than a full solution, is more of what I'm realizing. But it kind of almost works like a bariatric surgery or something, where it just limits your intake, So that being said, I do know that I didn't lose weight on those 2 days that I ate packs of gummies, but that was like my only slip up during those days. So I didn't like fall back. I didn't like gain like 5 pounds or anything. I'm just still kind of like on track, but down like 5.5 pounds, not 6 whole pounds now or something. But yesterday I was back on track with the eating, and the scale was back on track, heading back down. So I think everything's still going well. The other thing that happened was that my bracelet broke. So I had to go, I went into a necklace that I had that was really strong, and I shortened it and turned it into a new bracelet. So everything's all set there. And I'm working on getting the prototypes, but I'm really nervous because these things have to be really durable in order for them to work, because if it falls off of your hand, I almost had like a little mini panic attack, which was silly because I kind of know what number I'm at during the day anyway, because I'm tracking, but I also see it. So it's like, all I have to do is remember back to what number I was on. And I did. And I just went back to writing the number on my hand for the rest of the day until I could, come home, make the thing again. But it just occurred to me that could cause problems for people. I want these to look fashionable because I want people to want to wear their bracelet. But I'm also prepared to make these out of paracord if that's what it takes to make them not just like all over the place, because that was a little bit of a panic attack. So I haven't decided how to work that out, but also I noticed that some of my 2 of 5s in my early days of doing this were probably what I would call actually more like a 7. And I think it was just my body still reacting to the limited schedule of food and just trying to restructure to like calming down and feeling like that's normal, as opposed to like a reason to freak out. And so I went ahead with that. I felt like, you just kind of let your body flow into it. If your body is like starving for those last bites and it's like, no, call this a 5, like eat the food, you know what I mean? Like you probably called something a 3 and you should have called it a 1.5 earlier or something. If you're starving, this is not what this is supposed to be for. You should, again, what we're going for is maybe waking up a little bit hungry. That's how I prove to myself that I'm on a bit of a deficit, just a little bit hungry. And then again, we do watch the scale, we watch the clothing, we watch how our energy feels, and just keep that up. One last final tip that I don't think I've mentioned yet, I have been refrigerating and freezing my carbs. So you might want to Google different attempts on that. Like I put my sweet potatoes in the refrigerator, apparently not the freezer because it messes with the texture of everything. And I put potatoes in the refrigerator. I've been putting my sourdough bread in the freezer, then taking it out and slicing it up and turning it into sliced bread for the counter. And that is supposed to slow the rate that the glucose absorbs. I still think that lower carb is still better for your zoom down days. And I might even still bring in some fasting, but that's not going to happen until I reach a plateau level. So far, that hasn't happened. And I've done other calorie restrictive diets without fasting, and I never had to fast in order to get down to my goal weight. So we might just go ahead and do that. The other last update, because every once in a while I bring up that I am still working on my spinal damage and also quitting smoking marijuana. I'm still working on it, but I'm waiting on losing the first 10 pounds before I quit smoking marijuana. I just want to be on track with one before I start the other. And also I think that that might kind of supplement and complement each other in the long run, just because I feel like I don't really get the munchies, but it does make me like okay with being lazier, and I already have executive dysfunction, so like it can turn into slug mode really fast for a person with ADHD. We like marijuana because I feel like it lets us feel like our executive dysfunction. If we just smoke some weed, we can actually like relax a little through the executive dysfunction. So like we almost like sort of recover and come back up. But if you're smoking like constantly, I feel like it can kind of like reverse effect and just like keep you resting for too long. It's like it turns into slug mode real fast. So as much as I enjoyed my little crutch, I feel like crutches used too long hurt the shoulders. And in this same instance, I feel like it's no longer being a great benefit to me, and I should be using exercise and other things to keep myself going. So we're still on kind of a pause with that. And then and everything else is just kind of flowing. So what else was I going to talk about? I think that's pretty much it. I'll update you later. This has already been too long of a video. Cheers.